Hi, this is Rose McDonough, and I am a retired family and consumer science teacher that's been feeding my family for most of 25 years. We used to have a huge garden, and one of the things that I did with our garden is I would make something that I called chili starter. I would take tomatoes, hot peppers, green peppers, red peppers, garlic, onions, whatever I had in the garden, and I would put it all together with chili seasoning, and I would can it and put it away in my cupboard. Then when we wanted to make chili, I would take ground meat and I would cook it up. I would put in my chili starter and a can of chili beans, and voila! In about 20 minutes, we would have dinner. And so today I would like to walk you through what I did. Brooke wasn't with me, so I had to do all the filming myself. So please bear with me when I don't do such a great job with the camera. First, you begin by washing all of your tomatoes. After you wash the tomatoes, you take the stem off of it and look around for anything else that might need to be peeled off, as in some markings in the skin. After I have washed the tomatoes some in the water, I pull the tomatoes out and I go to the stem end, and I use this very small serrated knife that I have, and I put it in and I just saw my way through. Once I've sawed through, I just grab out the stem and pull it out. That's what it will look like. Then I check the tomato over and I look for imperfections, which I clearly see an imperfection there. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to cut that tomato at that part. I see that I have a deep, dark space there. I obviously don't want that in with my chili starter, so I'm going to just go ahead and use my knife again. I put it into a V shape and I pop it out. That's it. That's all it is. And then I put it over here on my cutting board. I work a peck at a time just because that's what's easier for me. About a peck, which is 10 to 12 pounds of tomatoes, will fit in to my dish pan, the one that I use to wash the tomatoes. You know, if you have a garbage disposal, maybe you want to just stop up your sink and do it that way. But I don't have a garbage disposal, and I mulch everything anyway. So because we mulch, I just do this, toss it into my mulch bucket, and then go from there. When I am all finished with my mulch, just an FYI, I take it out and I throw it towards the garden. And if the silly deer don't get it, then it mulches back in. And a lot of times when we lived in our old house and had a really big garden, a lot of times we would end up with what I called volunteers. They were tomatoes that grew back up from the seeds that had gotten mulched in there. With my chili starter, I am not going to actually take the skins off, although when I have made things before, I have definitely taken the skins off. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to use my food processor, and I'm going to grind them into my food processor and toss them into my really large pot that I have over here. This is actually a very old pressure cooker, which I lost the part of it off the top of it. I have no idea how many years ago, and it doesn't matter that I lost this part because I don't use it anymore for that. I use it because it's really heats consistently, and I will fill most of this pot with my peppers and my tomatoes and my garlic and everything else that is in it. So I'll show you step by step as I go along. So I put a few tomatoes, I usually cut them in half, and I put them into my food processor, process it just on pulse until it starts to look like this, and then from that part I dump it into my pan until I'm finished. When I am finished with the tomatoes, I start on peppers. I'm using 4 large peppers. Obviously wash them, core them. Then onions, I usually use 3 to 4 onions, and then the hot peppers. Please make sure that you wear a glove when you're using the hot peppers so that you are not getting those seeds against your skin. This is everything added together. You see how beautiful and colorful it is. And then here's my garlic, 2 heads of garlic. And when I'm peeling these heads apart to the individual cloves, after I've trimmed off the top and the bottom, I use my meat mallet and hit it on the side. Once I smash it, quickly the papery stuff comes off of it, and I throw that garlic right in whole, mashing it up as I'm going along later. After I've done that, I've added my kosher salt. You can also use pickling salt, you can use canning salt. Don't use table salt. And about 6 tablespoons of chili powder, and add those together. The last thing, as I'm cooking it down for several hours, taste it. If it's not the taste that you want it to be, it's too bitter, that's your tomatoes. Maybe add a little bit of sugar. If you feel like you need more acid taste to it, put in some vinegar. Then after that, you're ready to start canning. Okay, these are the last steps. I've cooked it for several hours. I've jarred it up. This is what I use to pour in. It kind of makes it a little bit easier because it fits in there so nicely. And then I have also added a little bit of lemon juice to each of the jars, about 1/2 teaspoon to the quarts, and then I have a few pints over here, and I added 1/4 teaspoon. If you were going to use your sauce within 18 months, you probably don't need to add that. It's just a little more acid that you add to it. The last thing that I have to do after I put the lids on the jars is I have this big canner here. If you do not, and you would like to make the chili starter and freeze it, you can use plastic containers to freeze it in. But what I'm going to do is I have filled this up with water. It's now boiling, so I'm going to put the jars in there and put the lid back on it. I have some other water boiling in the background in case I need more, because everything needs to be covered. And we will boil it for about 40 minutes to process, and I'll hear pop, pop, pop as all of the lids seal back down. This is just a shot of my jars. You don't want your jars to be touching too much. You need to make sure that the water gets all the way around them, and I don't know if I had mentioned that before. Included in the description, I have a link to go to someone else who does basically canning for beginners. If you've never canned before, it's a great way for you to look at it. Other than that, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, subscribe, and join me again.